Let me tell you about Adam.
This is my pet duck, Adam, going for his first swim. Be careful, Adam. Adam! Adam!
He's a visionary, he's a goal-oriented person, always has direction, always makes things happen. He's actually quite an impressive man. He knows where he's going, he knows what he's doing, he's very self-driven, self-motivated, and he makes things happen. And then one day, he completely lost his spark. He had no vision, no goals, no drive. He felt empty, stuck, stagnant, and lost. This was very confusing for Adam, and it was incredibly concerning. So he came to start working with me, and we found out what the problem was. Spoiler alert, he needed to revamp his life. He needed to change his values. He was more on a dopamine hit, and he needed to actually be seeking fulfillment. The stagnant, stuck place that he was in was helping him go through a transformation. So let's get into Adam's background story, how he made the change, how he pivoted from that place of stagnancy and actually attained fulfillment. So Adam's background story is he's a very high energy, highly motivated person. Also, unfortunately, came from a very rough background. You know, his parents divorced when he was 12. And his mother left. His father was quite abusive, and so he really couldn't rely on anybody but himself. And unfortunately, the background of his family life meant that he also didn't really know true connection, fulfillment, and love. So he had no choice but to be more in survival mode and seek dopamine hits, because connection, fulfillment, and love required intimacy, being close, being open, and being vulnerable. And he wasn't allowed to do that with his background and upbringing. So he just, through his survival mode, made things happen, and he was really good at everything. At the same time, it helped him to discover some of his talents. He was a very talented entrepreneur. He was able to take a concept and bring it to full fruition. He had great team building skills, he had great managerial skills, and he was quite a risk taker. So he also made a lot of his goals and dreams of travel, of life experiences, maybe doing a few risky things here and there happen because he wasn't afraid. He really believed in himself. And he had a very strong goal, which is actually more survival based, not fulfillment based. And let me explain that for a second. Survival based means I need to make myself feel safe, secure, and protected. And having that level of motivation and drive, he was able to make things happen because he was also very skilled, talented, and very self-educated. That didn't make him necessarily feel good, but it made him feel somewhat safe, and it really helped him to kind of inflate his ego, and that's how he was feeling good about himself. But the ego needs to constantly be fed, and fed dopamine, which are those like hits of like, oh, I made this thing happen, or I had this success point, and I had this achievement, or I was able to get this person's attention, or I was able to get through the doors of this really difficult place to get into. I was able to convince this person to do this thing. Those were all ways of feeling powerful because of the little boy inside of him that felt so disempowered from his painful background and upbringing. And so he had some distorted values based off of survival needs in that sense. But those values didn't bring him fulfillment. And that's what I mean, the difference between survival and fulfillment. Survival were based off of protection and feeling empowered, where fulfillment is feeling connection and actually having a sense of purpose, which often is very service oriented to some extent, where survival is very self-serving. It's all about me and my gains, because if I don't take care of me and my gains, I'm not going to survive. But when I'm out of survival mode, it's all about connection and relating to others and having a strong sense of purpose, which tends to serve others, which goes back to that feedback loop of connecting with others. It's more heart-centered, more emotionally based, it has more integrity, because it's not riddled with fear and pain. It's riddled with love, a sense of belonging, and a strong sense of purpose that comes hand in hand with that sense of belonging. Now, when we looked at Adam's experiences, it was quite confirmed that the achievements that he had were all about crunching numbers, getting a large bank account, being able to fight his way through quote unquote injustice that was happening, because he had a chip on his shoulder and every experience he went through was a battle he needed to win. And at the end of the day, doing that for years and decades, it never brought him peace. It never brought him fulfillment. It kept him stuck in a survival loop because he hadn't actually processed, overcome, or integrated his background wounding and hurt. Even though on the outside he looked super successful, on the inside it was heavy, dark, painful, and riddled with anger and grief. And sometimes fear, but he had no problems facing his fears. So it was mostly riddled with anger and grief. And he got to his personal version of rock bottom, which was that place of feeling stuck, stagnant, empty, lost, and having no direction. That's when his fear really popped up, because he didn't know what else to do. And he had no choice but to come face to face with the demons inside of him. And when he did, we did a trauma release work together, and it was incredibly uncomfortable to go through, but he was finally liberated. He became a free man. He was no longer confined by his painful past. And as a free man, he was finally able to connect with his own vulnerability, his own sensitivities, and that naturally made him connect with others more easily, and that helped him to really blossom a sense of purpose and fulfillment. And it was kind of going through his own version of a rebirth, where his ego identity, his survival identity, was ready to die off. So his true identity, his purpose-based identity, his fulfillment identity had some space to be birthed and flourish. And I'm happy to say that he successfully went through his internal transformation, his rebirth. And I'm not surprised, because as strong-willed of a person as he was to get through his survival identity, those same strengths that he developed in that identity is naturally going to support him to reclaim a more peace-based and joy-based and fulfillment-based identity. When he finally rested in the empty feeling, the uncertainty, the lack of direction, and the feeling, and the stagnant feeling, he found himself. Okay, so if you could relate to Adam's story in any way, I would love to hear from you. Right now, as the channel is a little bit smaller, I can personally respond to every comment. So I would love to hear from you, get into a little bit of a dialogue with you about your process and your story, and maybe share further insights, and possibly hear any other videos that you may want to hear about or learn about. Thank you for your time. I'll see you in the next video. May peace be with you.